What's going on, guys? Snort's a lot to talk about. We got this clown commented on my pics, Fat Joe, fake gangster rapper, a rat that he is. See, I got his paperwork over my TikTok right now. Cooperated 1991. I'm used to deal with JD cases who went to a private school. Not from the hood, not gangster, just hangs out with people that, did some bad guy things and then want to call themselves gangster rappers. I mean, we could go into all these rappers, all of my rocks, most of them, but they run their mouths like they're some big tough guys because nobody knows who they are. Nobody glorifies what they do. We do something wrong, we're on the front page of the paper. That's how it goes. I'm getting a lot of DMs and questions about Johnny Eli. I don't know what's going to happen with Johnny Eli. Okay, listen, the government's like this. When you do what you do and you sit with them, they'll tell you, hey, we tolerate certain things. Okay, when you come home, you get into altercations, fights, things with women, it happens. We get it. We don't like it, but it happens. But if you commit organized crime acts again as if you were still a gangster, no. You're done. So, I don't believe that he was really doing that because I know he knows how serious the consequence would be for someone like him, because most of the guys that we are and all sit and talk, we're all career criminals. Most of us. You think the mob bosses were asking what? Ballet dancers to do crimes for them? No, the worst guys in the area commit these heinous acts for the higher-ups. That's why we get our second chance in life, because we work for the important people. Don't you get it? It's all a deal. It's a business deal. But they'll tell you that you go home and you start acting like you're in the mob again, we'll put your lights out. You could actually go on the old guidelines, which most of us cop out for 25 to life plus 60, crazy stuff. My guidelines, I believe, was like 20 to life I copped down to in the feds. So, you commit organized crime acts again, you can go under those old charges again. I don't know how this is. I can't see him doing this. I mean, they're saying they have evidence. I believe they took something and they made it bigger than what it was because he sat on that seat as a city councilman and they didn't like it. So, we're going to find out in time what's going on. I just wanted to update everybody. Fat Joe is a rat. He 100% got my YouTube taken down. He reports me. He makes comments on my page. He cooperated in 1991, just so you know. Yes, I have the paperwork. It's coming out. That's why he got me taken down. So, like I said, I'll continue speaking my piece. Before John Alite ever landed back behind bars, his name was already heating up online because Fat Joe had just called him out in public. Fat Joe soft that thinks if he talks about street guys or ex-street guys, it makes him credible. I mean, nobody could with you. We like a rat. You gotta be a rat, right? Yeah. Fat Joe, You with Joey Merlino. These guys, what they got worse. That's the same guy. Fat Joe, who's a rapper, is talking with Joey Merlino. I don't know. They were on some podcast. I didn't see the interview. But Fat Joe called John a lighter rat. You were nothing but a little, that's all you were. You were not a tough guy. You were far from it, and you know that. So, let's not go there, because you remember a guy, Jason Hernandez? Remember Jason Hernandez, Little Chucky? Little Chucky opened you up. Hey, Joe, that you were petrified of him, and Chucky stood about 5 feet 5 inches. 5 feet 5 inches. You remember Chucky? Joey Crack was sitting on a podcast talking about street figures and former mob guys when John Alite's name came up. And Joe did not dance around the label that has followed Alite for years. That one word changed the whole temperature. John had spent years trying to rebuild his image as a former Gambino associate who claimed he left the street life behind. I got to address a video of Fat Joe, soft that thinks if he talks about street guys or ex-street guys, it makes him credible. You're soft first off. You abused a girl, 2010 sexual assault. You should be hiding under a rock somewhere, because what I hear and what I understand from your past friends, and I'm friends with some of the ex-guys you used to stay with that you over. I'm friends with Cuban Link that you over. So, I know I'm getting good information. You're known to taking girls, abusing them, sexually assaulting them, selling heroin your whole life in the Bronx. You ain't no successful singer or money guy. So, you can put that to the rest. You're a classless pig that wears dirty chains around his neck like a child, like you're 15 when you're near 60. And how dare you talk like you want to help kids? Help kids do what? You immature clown. You're nothing but a piece of that around with hookers your whole life and strippers. Look at you. You look like a one-eyed turtle. Old man, fat, sloppy body. Abused your wife your whole life. Disrespected her with hookers and girls, and every girl that you abuse you shouldn't, and I don't know how that guy sat next to you knowing that you were accused of all kinds of rapes. You're a lowlife, garbage, typical. Hollywood pig mouth. Little spoiled brat acting like you're a hardcore. You did a couple of months in some county for, I believe, for tax evasion or some crap. And you're trying to act like you're this hardcore guy because you're mentioning my name and other people's names. When you go to bed at night and you can't get it up, stop mentioning my name. Go mention somebody else's name when you're trying to stay with your wife, and who knows why she's with you. You're a deadbeat. But Fat Joe went straight at the most controversial part of his past, his cooperation with authorities. John did not let that slide. He fired back with a full-blown rant accusing Fat Joe of using street names and old war stories to make himself look tougher than he really is. He also brought up people from Joe's past and claimed former associates had been feeding him information. Whether every story John told was accurate is a whole different conversation, because these were his claims, not proven facts. But his message was clear. He wanted Fat Joe embarrassed, exposed, and forced to answer him publicly. John kept going, attacking Joe's image, his career, and his personal life. This was not some calm disagreement. It sounded personal, and John made it seem like he had even more information ready to drop. That is what made the timing so wild. While Fat Joe was outside enjoying himself and showing love to the Knicks, John Alite was online talking like Joey Crack was about to face one of the biggest exposés of his career. But before John could release any so-called bombshells, the whole story flipped. Suddenly, Fat Joe was no longer the man under pressure. John Alite was. Then everything flipped overnight. While Fat Joe was outside enjoying the Knicks playoff run, one of his loudest enemies was reportedly being taken into custody and sent back to a place he knew all too well. Just days earlier, John Alite had been calling Joe out, making serious accusations, and hinting that he had information that could shake up the hip-hop world. He was talking like a major exposé was coming. But before any of those supposed bombshells could land, John became the headline himself. According to New Jersey authorities, the former councilman and ex-mob associate was charged in connection with an alleged loan sharking operation. What's going on, guys? So, I want to just put that out there before all the stories start happening and, they get a hold of it. All the haters. Johnny Alite was locked up today. Hey, Jim, what's going on? I can't believe it. They locked Johnny Alite up. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yes, they locked him up today on all gangster charges. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm reading them off. It's loan sharking, extortion, drug fights. It all that like Rico, but it's a state got her right now. The Attorney General of Jersey locked him up. It's a lady. Wow. Prosecutors claim threats of violence were used while collecting money from borrowers, turning what sounded like an old-school street case into a major legal problem. And this was not some random internet personality getting arrested. John Alite had spent years speaking openly about his past, his connection to organized crime, and the violence that once surrounded his name. He had also built a new public image around redemption, claiming that chapter of his life was behind him. That is why the arrest hit differently. John had gone from former Gambino associate to government witness, author, speaker, and even local politician. For years, he presented himself as someone who understood where the street life leads and wanted younger people to avoid making the same mistake. But now, prosecutors were accusing him of stepping right back into the kind of activity he claimed to have left behind. The timing made the whole situation look even more dramatic because John had been focused on exposing Fat Joe while authorities were allegedly building a case around him. My YouTube page was taken down, the one that I was, playing around on and getting everybody mad on because, I say what I want, do what I want when I want, and then people can't handle that. Fat Joe, the fake gangster rapper from the Bronx, the one with all these fake war stories on the internet now. He robbed the whole gym, beat up karate people, this clown. He's reporting me. He can't handle what I'm saying about him. Obviously, the truth hurts. We got paperwork on him, Everything's exposed about him. He's hanging out with people that I know that cooperated, but yet he's sitting with Joey Merlino. Joey Merlino knows it, and he was all sitting together. Like, I'm about to expose that real soon, too. One minute, John Alite was online promising smoke. The next minute, people close to him were announcing that he had been locked up on charges that sounded straight out of his old life. To understand why these charges caused such a reaction, you have to look at the life John Alite built his name around. Fat Joe is gloating. And to me, that's haters. That's haters, so, to gloat at somebody else's misfortune, really, it's not good. He was not known as some ordinary local politician. He was an Albanian-American from Queens who became associated with John Gotti Jr. and figures connected to the Gambino crime family. Over the years, Alite openly described himself as an enforcer who handled serious street business. In interviews, books, and public appearances, he spoke about shootings, beatings, and the violent reputation he carried during that time. Those are his own accounts, but they helped turn him into one of the most recognizable former mob figures on the internet. Eventually, that lifestyle caught up with him. Alite faced major federal charges, served time behind bars, and later cooperated with prosecutors. He testified against former associates, including John Gotti Jr., and that decision changed how many people viewed him forever. Got this fake gangster rapper pretty mad? He keeps commenting on my pictures. Fat Joe. Okay, we all know you no good. Okay, we all know that you're a fake gangster telling fake war stories on the internet. Okay, now you're over here trying, glaze Joey Merlino like he's something. All right, buddy. Listen, I'm gonna have fun with you. All right, man. You have no idea what you're stepping into. This is gonna be like a 50-cent beef, when you got abused by him, and you got abused by Papoose, and you got abused by everybody else. I'm gonna abuse you too now. All right, so we're gonna have fun now, right? The bad guy from Sonic the Hedgehog. That's what you look like, with your freaking painted-on goatee. I never seen anything like you in my life. Commenting on my pics like he's some big shot. Walking around police. Walking around with security. Wear this, wear that, but I don't have no security. It's funny. Security you walk around with. You're just like the rest of them. All this. To some, John became a man who escaped a destructive life and tried to warn others. To his critics, he became an informant who broke the same street code he once claimed to live by. That debate followed him into every interview, every argument, and now his conflict with Fat Joe. After prison, John completely reinvented himself. He wrote books, became a motivational speaker, appeared on podcasts, and eventually entered local politics in New Jersey. His entire new image was built around redemption and a message that young people should stay away from crime. That is why these new allegations hit so hard. Prosecutors were now accusing a man who publicly preached change of being connected to an alleged loan sharking operation where threats were reportedly used to collect debts. Nothing has been proven in court, and John is entitled to defend himself. But from the outside, the story looked almost unbelievable. The former enforcer who became an informant, speaker, and politician was suddenly facing charges that sounded connected to the world he repeatedly claimed was behind him. As news of the arrest started spreading, people close to John Alite rushed online before the headlines could shape the story. Gene Borello was one of the first to confirm that John had been taken into custody, and even he sounded shocked by the charges being reported. The accusations included alleged loan sharking, extortion, threats, and other serious offenses being handled at the state level in New Jersey. Suddenly, the man who had spent days challenging Fat Joe was dealing with a legal situation much bigger than any internet back and forth. The timing also came with a strange twist. Shortly before his arrest, John had posted himself relaxing in the sun while listening to Tony Bennett's The Good Life, a song about enjoying freedom. Now, freedom was the one thing he no longer had. That raised the biggest question surrounding this entire story. After surviving the streets, prison, and the fallout from becoming a government witness, did John Alite ever truly leave his old world behind? Or were the new allegations proof that his past had finally circled back? Again, these are charges, not convictions, and John will have the chance to answer them in court. But the public image he had spent years building was immediately under pressure. The motivational speeches, political position, and redemption story were now being judged against accusations that sounded connected to the same life he claimed to have escaped. Meanwhile, Fat Joe was outside enjoying the Knicks' success while the man promising to expose him had suddenly gone silent, at least for the moment. But John still had people ready to fight his battles online. Gene Borello quickly stepped forward, accusing Fat Joe of celebrating another man's downfall and claiming Joe had been working behind the scenes to silence critics. That meant John's arrest did not end the beef. It simply opened the door for somebody else to step in, and Gene was about to take the situation in an even messier direction. With John Alite off the scene, the story should have cooled down, but it did the exact opposite. Fat Joe started leaving comments under Gene Borello's post, and the message behind them was hard to miss. Joe appeared to suggest that Gene should be worried about John cooperating with authorities and possibly bringing other people into the case. Coming from the same man who had already called John an informant, those comments landed like a direct shot. Fat Joe was not just laughing at John's arrest anymore. He was pushing the idea that history might repeat itself and that John could start talking once the legal pressure got heavy. That changed the whole angle of the beef. Before the arrest, John and Gene were trying to put Fat Joe on the defensive. Now Joe was flipping the pressure back on them and making the conversation about loyalty, paperwork, and who might say what when serious charges are involved. Gene clearly saw the comments, and he did not ignore them. He jumped on Instagram and accused Fat Joe of being a fake gangster who tells exaggerated street stories online. He also mocked Joe's image, security, and appearance while promising to keep the back and forth going. Gene made it clear that John's arrest was not going to stop him from pressing Fat Joe. At that point, this was no longer just John Alite versus Joey Crack. John was dealing with the courts. Fat Joe was throwing shots from the comment section, and Gene had stepped forward as the loudest voice on John's side. And Gene was not treating this like a quick social media argument. He compared the situation to one of 50 Cent's long-running feuds and promised to keep digging into Fat Joe's past. The biggest question was whether this would stay online, because once people start throwing around informant claims, paperwork accusations, and old street stories, the situation can get messy fast. Gene's response did not stop with jokes about Fat Joe's image. He started pulling other names into the situation, and that is when the beef moved away from simple trolling and into old street politics. One of the names brought up was Pistol Pete after Whack 100 previously claimed he had paperwork connected to a domestic dispute involving law enforcement. Those claims have been disputed, and nothing Gene said automatically proves them. But once paperwork gets mentioned in a public feud, people online start running with it fast. That is the dangerous part of this whole situation. Every side is now trying to destroy the other person's credibility by bringing up old allegations, former associates, and stories that most viewers cannot independently verify. Gene was clearly trying to show that Fat Joe had no right to call anybody an informant while standing beside people Gene believed had their own questionable history. In his eyes, Joe was playing both sides, using street credibility when it helped his image, then calling others rats when the pressure came his way. But Fat Joe's angle was much simpler. John Alite had cooperated before, and now that John was facing another serious case, Joe appeared convinced that he could do it again. That is why the phrase he's going to tell hit so hard. It was not just another joke in the comment section. It went straight at the one part of John's past that his enemies will never let him escape. Now, Gene was left defending John while also trying to put Fat Joe on trial in the court of public opinion. He promised more claims, more paperwork, and more stories, but the entire battle was becoming harder to control. What started as John Yolette threatening to expose Fat Joe had completely reversed. John was behind bars, Gene was carrying the fight online, and Fat Joe was sitting back suggesting that the biggest revelation might come from John himself. At this point, the whole situation has flipped upside down. John Yolette started this by threatening to expose Fat Joe, but now John is the one fighting serious charges while Fat Joe keeps poking at the weakest part of his reputation. Gene Borello is still keeping the pressure on Joey Crack, but every new post only adds another layer to the drama. Old names are being mentioned, paperwork claims are flying around, and both sides are trying to prove who really lived what they talk about. The difference is that Fat Joe can argue from a distance. John has already cooperated with prosecutors in the past, so Joe does not need to invent a new angle. All he has to do is keep repeating that history and let people wonder what John might do if the pressure starts closing in again. But nothing has been proven in this latest case, and John Alite still has the right to fight every allegation in court. Until more evidence comes out, nobody outside that courtroom truly knows where this case is heading or whether anybody else will be pulled into it. What we do know is that this beef is far from finished. Gene has made it clear that he plans to keep coming at Fat Joe while Joey Crack looks comfortable throwing shots and watching the situation unfold from the sidelines. So, did Fat Joe finally get the last laugh, or is Gene sitting on information that could bring the heat right back to him? And if John Alite starts feeling the pressure, do you believe he stays silent? Or does Fat Joe's he's going to tell prediction become the next major twist? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe to Drip Zine, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update. Around here, we do not make the news, we break it down.